Meeting to order at 5:32. If we can please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. We move on to 1.3, approval of the board agenda. If I can get a motion to approve.
I move to approve.
Second, please.
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Alvariano,
Aye.
Mr. Andrew Sandoval,
Aye.
Ms. Sarah Turner,
Aye.
Mr. Jacob Sandoval,
Aye.
Mr. Neil Patel is not present. Motion passes 4-0.
Okay, item 2.1 is approval of consent agenda for items 2.2 to 2.5. If I can please get a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Okay, a second, please.
Second.
Okay, and roll call.
Ms. Alvariano,
Aye.
Mr. Andrew Sandoval,
Aye.
Ms. Sarah Turner,
Aye.
Mr. Jacob Sandoval.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Moving on to reports, information, and correspondence. Anything coming from SRTA?
No.
And 3.2, anybody from CSEA or public comments, Matt?
No.
No, all is quiet. 4.1, any public comment agenda items or non-agenda items?
There is no public comment.
Okay, and also no public comment regarding agenda items as well.
Correct.
Okay, moving on to 5.1, approval of resolution 22.07.2, authorizing the use of remote teleconference provisions under AB 361.
For our upcoming board meeting, one of our board members will need to join virtually. And so in order to facilitate that, it's recommended that we pass this resolution.
Can I get a motion to approve?
Motion to approve?
A second, please.
Second.
Okay, roll call.
Ms. Alvariano,
Aye.
Mr. Andrew Sandoval,
Aye.
Ms. Sarah Turner,
Aye.
Mr. Jacob Sandoval.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Okay, we move on to item 5.2, approval of AB 1200, public disclosure for negotiations with CSEA Chapter 503.
Thank you. This is the approval process through MCOE for our negotiations that we have concluded with CSEA, authorizing the funding.
Okay, thank you, and also thank you for making that possible to be involved. Can I get a motion to approve?
Motion to approve?
Second, please.
Second.
Okay, roll call.
Ms. Alvariano,
Aye.
Mr. Andrew Sandoval,
Aye.
Ms. Sarah Turner,
Aye.
Mr. Jacob Sandoval.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Okay, thank you. Item 5.3, approval of contract for consulting services with attendance enrollment reporting.
This is a renewal of the contract for our consultant who's been assisting with CalPads. Officially now in the training stage since we have Yenny, who's really catching on fast to CalPads.
Okay, any questions, comments? No, can I get a motion to approve?
Motion to approve?
Okay, second, please.
Second.
Okay, and roll call.
Ms. Alvariano,
Aye.
Mr. Andrew Sandoval,
Aye.
Ms. Sarah Turner,
Aye.
Mr. Jacob Sandoval.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Okay, moving on to 5.4, public hearing on the formation of a proposed school facilities improvement number 2022-1 of the Santa Rita Union School District. At this time, it is 5:35 p.m. I'm going to open up the hearing. We'll keep it open.
During the hearing, I would like to mention that the county's legal counsel sent the wrong Exhibit A. Our legal counsel has advised we can go ahead and proceed with passing this resolution. And that Exhibit A, since it is the county's document to sign, they sent us one indicating that we would be passing a bond requiring a 2/3 majority vote, and we're doing the 55% majority vote. And so they'll just exchange it after we pass our resolution for the correct Exhibit A for the county board to pass.
Okay. Any other questions regarding the resolution or the next steps?
Any public comment come in?
Public comment come in? Can we wait a couple more minutes just to see if it is? Well, this is exciting to kind of see what the possibilities are if we were able to get this band pass to improve our school district.
Yeah, and I really appreciated the survey information that we looked at recently. I felt like people's responses were entirely reasonable. Like, yes, we'll support new roofs for the kids and pipes and all, that it's just the basic building blocks that we, need to have are safe schools for everybody.
Oh. Hello, welcome.
We've been waiting.
So right now we're in 5.4, which is the public hearing for the formation of a proposed school facilities improvement bond. So it's like open hearing in case you guys have any questions or comments as well. Wait one more minute to 5:38, and then we'll close.
That's why you guys walked in a quiet moment. We were waiting to see if anybody called
Did,
in.
right, that had to seem like,
Oh,
You're doing
they're
it.
here. Okay, at this time at 5:38 p.m., I'd like to close the hearing for item 5.4.
thank you.
Okay, and then the Board of Supervisors will be taking a vote once we pass it on July 26th. Do their section. Moving on to 5.5. Approval of Resolution 22.07.19, ordering the formation of an SFID number 2022-1 of the Santa Rita Union School District and authorizing necessary actions in connection therewith. Any questions or comments before we move forward? Okay, can I get a motion to approve?
Motion to approve?
Can I get a second, please?
Second?
Okay, roll call.
Ms. Alvariano,
Aye.
Mr. Andrew Sandoval,
Aye.
Ms. Sarah Turner,
Aye.
Mr. Jacob Sandoval.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Okay, awesome. Great news. First step. Okay, moving on to 6.1, approval of tentative agreement between CSEA chapter number 503 and the Santa Rita Union School District for the 2022-2023 negotiations.
Thank you. And attached are the tentative agreements between the district and CSEA for negotiations, particularly for compensation, health and welfare benefits, professional growth, terms and reopeners, and an increase in the hours for the position of library media technician. We are continuing contract language negotiations once school resumes in the fall, but these were the big ticket items that we agreed to move forward at this point.
Okay, thank you. And also thank you once again for showing up. And also we appreciate the positive relationship we have with the CSEA membership. Any questions or comments before we move to approve?
Just thank you to negotiators on both sides for CSEA and the district. Thank you specifically to Rosa because I remember her trying to scramble to find every dollar through all of the negotiations this year. So that's appreciated.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve?
No, I had just one question. I remember, and I didn't see it in here, but the steps for, I think after 25 years of service, did we ever get that adjusted? So it continued, didn't stop at like the 25 or 30?
That was on the teacher side
On
that we want to work on that, and it is a goal for the future.
Oh.
And then we'll do it for everybody once we get it fixed.
Thank you.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve.
Second, please.
Second?
Okay, roll call.
Ms. Alvariano,
Aye.
Mr. Andrew Sandoval,
Aye.
Ms. Sarah Turner,
Aye.
Mr. Jacob Sandoval.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Okay, congratulations. That part is done, right? Yeah. Yeah. Did you guys want to say anything? I know we had moved past your section, but in case you guys have any comments you want to submit. Yeah.
We are with all the collaboration and the work that we have, the communication with the district. Really appreciate it, and we hope that we continue this and our negotiations that we have pending are on the parcel. So once again,
Thank you as well. Okay, and moving on to 6.2, approval of declaration of need for the school year 2022 to 2023.
Thank you. This is an annual document that's required when we're going to need to hire teachers on any kind of emergency permit. We do have a few of those pending hires at this point, and so this allows us to do that through the Credentialing Commission.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments? And if not, can I get a motion to approve?
Just a question. I know at EdJoin there's still a Santa Rita 5th grade. Is that still out there? And
Interviews have taken place, and I believe we're like at the reference check and clearances stage. Yeah.
And motion to approve.
Okay, second, please.
Second?
Okay, roll call.
Ms. Alvariano,
Aye.
Mr. Andrew Sandoval,
Aye.
Ms. Sarah Turner,
Aye.
Mr. Jacob Sandoval.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Okay, 8.1 is approval of the 2022-2023 agreement for subcontracting of activities under the California Department of Education for CSPP Santa Rita Union School District Little Bear Creek grants.
I think I win the title for longest,
I know.
or the award for longest title on the agenda for today. So thank you. This is to bring to you an agreement between ourselves and the Monterey County Office of Education. Oh, she made it. I was right on time, Norma. Between ourselves and the Monterey County Office of Education to subgrant our Little Bear Creek preschool. This will be an opportunity for us to continue our services in hopes of expanding with more opportunities provided to our teaching staff as well as our students. And so we're excited for the partnership. I also want to thank CSEA and SRTA for their collaboration as we've worked to talk with MCOE, with our teaching staff, holding meetings with both the staff there between all of us and with MCOE so that questions could be answered and responded to. An important part of this contract is that all of our Little Bear Creek staff, our teachers, will have an opportunity to apply for positions within MCOE for this coming year. And that'll be a closed posting. So it'll only be open to our Santa Rita Little Bear Creek teachers, which is a great opportunity. For this coming year, they'll also have the opportunity to stay on as Santa Rita employees. So they'll have the option so that we give that time of transition for staff. So over the last couple of weeks, we've had the opportunity to meet with MCOE's HR department as well as the early learning program with our staff to answer questions they may have about that transition period. So I'm really excited to be able to have done that collaboration to secure employment for our staff, not just for right now, but ongoing in that process. And then a continuation of services for our students. With this subcontract with MCOE, we also increase access to behavioral and mental health supports through the grants that are available through the county that they'll bring forward, as well as nutrition services, facility services. There's lots of great benefits to this partnership. So this is coming forward to you. Then the final approval will come from the state once MCOE board also signs off.
Okay, from what I understood, based on the Friday letter, the state's kind of vetted it a little bit to see that it would be a good fit as well.
Yeah, so the state's given its tentative approval. So
Okay.
at this point. Mhm.
Okay, no, thank
Yeah.
you for finding a solution,
Yeah.
you know, for the students, the families, and especially their staff as well. So
Yeah.
thank you. Any questions or comments from the board?
Just gratitude for everybody for working on this. Appreciate it.
Make a motion to approve, please.
I move to approve.
Okay, second.
Second.
Okay, roll call.
Ms. Alvariano,
Aye.
Mr. Andrew Sandoval,
Aye.
Ms. Sarah Turner,
Aye.
Mr. Jacob Sandoval.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Okay, thank you, everybody, and thank you, staff, as well. 9.1, approval of active crisis training contract.
I'm going to present this on behalf of Donna Koenig. So this is a contract that's coming forward to you to provide active crisis response and active shooter training for our staff. There's 4 parts to this. So the first part will be a leadership roundtable, which will happen the 25th, an opportunity for all of leadership to start the conversations, an online module that every staff member will take. And then on August 1st and 2nd, an active shooter, active crisis response in-person training, and then an ongoing crisis rehearsal that'll take place in October to make sure that the learning doesn't stop at the first part. And so this contract covers all of those.
Okay, great, and thank you for bringing this item forward as well. Any questions or comments?
Doing a lot of thank yous today, but thank you. This is something I know the administration wanted it to, but specifically as the board. And I appreciate the quick turnaround. And motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Ms. Alvariano,
Aye.
Mr. Andrew Sandoval,
Aye.
Ms. Sarah Turner,
Aye.
Mr. Jacob Sandoval.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Okay, thank you. And at this time, I'd like to call a 10-minute break for them to kind of rearrange the room a bit.
Thank you.
know, we moved everybody around, didn't we? Does everybody know what?
Okay, give me a countdown. Okay, it's 5:54. We're going to come back from our break. We're going to move on to 10.1, informational item or strategic action plan progress.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I am going to look like that for a second. I thought I handed this to everyone else and didn't keep one. I have one. Did everyone get one? I made so very many copies of things. No, I've got everything. Thank you, Victor. Nope. If they get a stapled one and a printout, I think they have them. I'm not sure the directors do, Victor. Walk this way. Come here. Yeah. Here. I think the ladies need those. Sorry. I think I left the board members. I didn't. Okay.
There you go.
I did, but just a minute. Okay. We did some color coding today, Summer and I. Thank you. So everyone may remember, give me one of the unstapled ones.
Here,
One staple, one un. Yeah, we got it.
you just need that
We
one.
got this. Okay. It's all part of a board workshop. Okay. So everyone may remember that a year ago, and sometimes that seems a long time ago, and sometimes it seems like yesterday, we created the first ever strategic action plan for the district where clearly set out what our vision, our mission, core values, priorities were going to be. So taking us back to when that was in a draft, one of the things for that placemat piece, Donna Koenig had a suggestion, and you may notice that on her board item, she was able to put in for her item that for the budget source, she wrote LCAP Goal 1, Action 3, just as a test drive on being able to do that in board docs. And if you are fine with us giving our priorities a number, we would also be able to note when it matches one of our strategic priorities as a district. And if that's okay, I'd like to make that adjustment to this document or this document so that it has those numbers so that we're able to do that. Donna always thinks about like how transparent is that if we could just point people to this goes to LCAP Goal 2 Action 4 or our strategic priority number 3. And so I'd like to make that change on this one document. So I was kind of bringing that forward if that's fine. And we'll start noting those where appropriate in our board documents.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea because it does allow for transparency. And also when we look up documents back,
Yeah.
we can right away, or the public, identify, oh, that was an item for.
You should be able to search it that way with board docs as well.
Yeah.
And that way when people go, why are you guys doing that? How does that, meet the needs of the districts? We're actually able to say here in the LCAP if that's appropriate or our strategic priorities. So I'll let her know that was a good idea and I'll add those numbers. So originally a year ago, we put out a 3-year action plan list. And just to sort of give us a chance to check in with our year 1 progress now that we're headed into year 2 and maybe some additional items and thinking. There's some on that back table as well. Okay. And so in looking at this sort of things that we feel like we completed what our intent was versus we're still working on those things, in looking at them. So our getting our new baseline, still working on that growth for our students, of course, our English learners, professional learning communities. In fact, Donna Koenig and our site leadership teams are in Sacramento at a PLC conference right now. So it's our principals, assistant principals, and academic coaches there with Donna as director of curriculum instruction. Today was their first day at the conference, and apparently they are having a marvelous time. And hopefully having a wonderful dinner at, where are they going this? The old spaghetti factory. This was a big deal to get that reservation for like 16 people. So I hope they're having a wonderful time.
What was the name of the conference? Sorry.
Okay.
PLC conference.
PLC.
PLC
So for the professional learning communities, Donna she started it last summer because we set out to do this, and they did the conference, but it was still virtual. And so this year it's back in person. So they went up as a team, and I guess Anthony Morales found the keynote speaker this morning before the session, got a photo op. And I'm like, okay, you guys are living your best life and getting everything they can out of it. So looking really good with where that's going. AVID program, really excited, onboarding Krisha Kerpool this week. She comes with a strong AVID background. She'll be traveling with our AVID leads next week to the AVID conference. And so kind of up-leveling that, bringing her connections and experience to us. And so that's kind of yellow because we're going to progress it farther for next year. So if we felt like that one was still a work in progress. And then Gear Up was successful at our middle school. That'll be moving up with the 7th and 8th graders for next year. And then our access to our curriculum council, working with Donna, looking at different instructional materials, setting some quality guidelines. I know they also looked at elementary report cards, getting those cleaned up, more aligned so that they directly can input their grades and it'll work right with our report cards. So adjusting those templates. Had a lot of help from Karen Yoder and Danny Crouch on building those templates and getting those in the system. Before, during, after school enrichment programs, a lot of those happen thanks to Dr. Prather Smith and bringing in all kinds of extra enrichment things beyond just tutoring and the standard things that our students also need.
Like one of the arts council members that did this, but to do a graffiti art project, that's like a targeted project and not on a building, right? Like this is, I need to direct that. So hopefully maybe next year we'll
That is so awesome. Yesterday I was thinking, I was like, man, we should be able to sponsor something that has
Yeah.
like a board for graffiti.
And there's actually been a
That's
lot
so
of
cool.
research that
Yeah.
give students a forum
Yeah.
for graffiti, that they don't, that vandalism goes down in the school community. So I'm gonna start working on that. That'll, hopefully we'll move these to sites and then bring in some.
So always looking for more and various different kinds of things. Appreciate that. But and so getting our evaluations for all of our staff, certificated, classified, and administrators on the timeline that they should be on. That was done. Getting our teacher assignments in compliance. Working like SPED, preschool, ACES, all those special programs that have the program compliance pieces, those got all in alignment. Thanks a lot to our new directors and who came in with a lot of background in those pieces. Expansion of our professional development model. Really excited just listening to Donna and Krisha talk this week and firing on all cylinders, wanting to change things up, add more things, do things. Krisha loves how we do our online PD catalog and ideas of what she can bring to it and just flesh that out. So really excited to see that. Virtual learning program went really well. One of the things that we're discovering is that for most of our families, towards the second semester, they were ready to come back into school with us And so we'll just continue to support those families who are looking for that program. Make sure that our families know that it exists here so they don't need to leave us to go to another district because they're not sure that it exists here. So I know another communication just went out this week reminding everyone about that. Our family resource centers are in yellow only because we weren't able to have the physical space fully operating, but I still want to, it's not the Dr. Prather Smith show, but she managed to go ahead and accomplish establishing one at McKinnon and JGMS, even though we thought that might be next year. And we just finally got the last pieces of furniture.
There. He supported in making sure that everything arrived as it was supposed to months ago. So Victor worked with the company to kind of give them what we needed up and operational. And I'm happy to report that all family resource centers are fully furnished, fully functioning as of Tuesday.
Oh, awesome.
As of yesterday. So,
So.
and some strong, but we're there.
And but with the next one, you know, like those community partnerships and everything and the services and stuff that we wanted to provide, she still found ways to provide the services, even though the space wasn't completely operational. We still had our EL classes, things like that, some of our other workshops, even though it wasn't furnished ideally in the way it was supposed to be. So now we'll start this year actually with everything there. And yeah,
We're
sorry. We're like, sorry, not sorry, but sorry. But those kinds of things that we wanted to do, those getting the increased social emotional supports and everything, you'll see the yellow there by the absenteeism, suspension, and expulsion decrease goal that we had. We're fast working on that. We saw lots of escalated behavior, lots of escalated need, still a lot of impact with COVID absenteeism, just ongoing at every level. And so that's still going to be a goal that we're going to carry over in working at those things. Yes, go ahead. No.
The other reason it's yellow is we weren't able to get our alternative to suspension program up and running from last year, only because we wanted to make sure that that teacher finished up her time and we didn't find a replacement math teacher. Happy to report, thank you HR. We have that position filled and I've already been collaborating with Chelsea and Chelsea's been working with Mike at McKinnon. They are getting the site up and running, the classroom space organized and designed. So we're really excited that we'll start the year with our alternative to suspension program ready to go, which will hopefully impact us too. So.
Yeah. And then building the regular communication out of what we're doing with those state of the district reports, communicating hopefully with the board is more effective, making sure that you know what's going on in the different departments and as things come up on a regular timeline and an emergency timeline as needed, of course. Still, we'll continue working on making sure those pathways for communication with our stakeholders are just continuing and growing. Social media, website, kind of updating those things, multiple pathways. I know a lot of times we got really good at Parent Square. I know Summer got really good at Parent Square. She was sometimes would be our go-to for just sending it out for us, but I wouldn't worry if people were like, I'm tired of hearing from you. I'd be like, that's just enough then. So our board governance calendar, that saw us through pretty well. I think we'll just make a couple of tweaks based on when something gets to us. Usually like I know like our board policies, I put down the months that they come to us. And it might be the following month that we're actually approving it because they come at the end of the month. So that's just sort of a learning curve. And so when I do our calendar at our next meeting, I'll just adjust those accordingly because I went, oh, it comes at the end of June or early July. So it can't be at the first meeting. It's going to have to be later. So setting our timelines. Getting our budgets on track. Rosa and her whole business department has been amazing with not just LCAP and all the regular district expenditures, but and not to be ungrateful, but the additional burden of the one-time funds and the reporting and the collection of data ongoing. They just took it in stride and are keeping everybody on track with that. Our facilities plan continues to progress, and so we'll talk about. I'm not even going to get into those two yet. We have a whole item for them to talk, but taking the time and being more purposeful this year in our facilities committee, making sure that we have the representatives from our certificated, our classified, our board at those facilities meetings, that we were having them regular, and that we built in time to share out at the board meeting after a facilities committee. I think it just sort of opens that process for everybody, because people have questions about, well, why did you decide to do that? Well, because we vetted it through, the recommendation and the need. And I think it's a cleaner process and it makes it more understandable. I know our certificated representatives, they would go back, talk to, at their SRTA meeting and be like, this is what we talked about at the facilities meeting. So people felt like they knew what the conversations were, and that in that respect, because she could bring something to the facilities committee and say that they had this question, and that's great. That's what that place is for. And so making sure that we are representative when we have those kind of meetings. Of course, looking out for like grants and exploiting all the funding possibilities and avenues. I think probably every director in the district, we even have principals who do it, applying for grants, looking for funding. One more thing for Rosa's department to oversee, but she's guilty of finding them too. So, but kind of want to draw your eye to year 2. And so and get your thoughts and feedback, and take this with you. And then as we look at this, like, we wanted to highlight the fact that for year 2, we're going to continue to focus on decreasing the absenteeism. We also added a couple of things, because this year 2 is going to become our focus for the 22-23 school year. Making sure that we add in the crisis response training and the actions around that for not just our students, but all of our staff. Focus on not just crisis response, but I think we have to clarify and codify that it's active shooter training as well. And that's a terrible thing to have to address. And, so when I was talking to Mr. Kimball, who's going to do a lot of this process with us, I thanked him for having his business. And I said, I am sorry that you have to have that business. And so he said he feels the same. And that's kind of where we're all at, probably as a nation of public school employees. But and so being purposeful and ongoing with those processes, so it's not just a one and done, because we know from learning experiences with what other districts have gone through that those things have to be ongoing, and those conversations have to exist at every level. And we have to be able to say, this is drawing my attention. What do we think about this? And point those things out, and just be more aware altogether. And then making sure that we do those PDs, that we do all of those other things, that it's for the adult safety, it's for the student safety, it's for how do we respond when there is any level of crisis, making sure that we're purposeful about like our suicide prevention with students and staff, and making sure that we're looking at handle with care, that we're dealing with any kind of behavioral issue appropriately on campus in a safe and conducive manner, and making sure that we're also doing those site threat assessments, and that those things get incorporated in our safety planning. We added those last few bullet points. Are there other things that, I know I attached this so you had time to kind of reflect and look back on it, but that as a board, you're like, we should codify that we do this, or?
Something that just occurred to me, kind of making a list, this might be site specific as well as district specific, of trainings that have already happened through the year. Just we're going to get a teacher that goes on maternity leave and somebody else is going to come in, like what is happening? What do we assume everybody knows, but they don't because they weren't here for XYZ. And then I noticed on the list, it talked about, a potential math pilot. The last I heard, the state was behind in terms of getting their math information. So just the knowledge that either might be second semester or it might get pushed to the next year, not having anything to do with us, but just because of what's been happening with the state. And then I really appreciate the ongoing goal of dealing with the absenteeism and just, kind of dealing with, the kind of multi-tiered system support. What does that family need and what is the issue, going on there? Because I just, from my professional life last year, the attendance was horrendous. And on, I'm hearing, when I go to Monterey County School Boards Association, that it's that way across the county. So anything that we can do to help families to get kids in school, and how can we deal with, do I need to send 7 COVID tests home with you so that you just have one at your house for your, peace of mind kind of thing? Just, we've got kids falling through the cracks all over the county right now.
Yeah, I think one thing for me that I know it's kind of happening now, but I think more cultural activities. I think we had some incidents earlier this year. So I think more we can do to kind of push that message where, if it's, Black History Month or Japanese, like whatever it is, we kind of show pride more in that sense. And it also shows, it exposes our students to that a little bit more. So hopefully the incidents that happen, hopefully will.
That's great. We'll codify. Yeah.
I just met with Delvina today because she's going to do our student book club, part of our student book club that's going to mirror what's happening with our adults. That's really going to have a focus on all those areas too.
So great. We'll codify that as well. So that additional work, and specify our behavior task force also, and then our equity coalition. Yeah.
And this is not so much to codify, but one thing I was kind of thinking of, I know next year we're going to districts, and as a board, we govern for the district, of course, but now we're going to be in certain areas. For Parent Square, is it possible to set up an account for board members to have access to certain
Should be. Yeah.
Because I think a lot of times there's events that happen,
Uh-huh.
and I think as board members, we'll be able to know, hey, these are the kind of schools that we're focusing on, and we'll kind of have access
Okay.
more to them as well.
Okay. Great. And then on a similar note, that's when you're going to be like, and that's enough.
Be like, "Can I mute it?"
You do see them because you are a parent. Yeah. So he knows what she's talking about. Yeah. We can certainly do that. And then one of the other things, I had sent an email asking if you were interested in creating a little bio. I actually found like a little questionnaire that you could just sort of fill in the blanks, and then we can build that, and I can share that out. I just got it today. And so I can share that out with you all, and then maybe we could put those together. I know, because I went ahead and put our trustee area map on our site, and then who was which trustee area. And I thought if we could just flesh that out with a little bit of about you info, so people know who you are.
And going back to the cultural events, I'm sorry, I was not at the board meeting when we added the other goal to the LCAP, but I just didn't know if we'd included potentially starting a field trip fund that went towards that, like our diversity and inclusion goal, so that, for instance, when I was in Washington, D.C. recently, I went to an amazing, it was all the major Black ballet companies in the United States putting on a gala together at the Kennedy Center, and it was fabulous. It was that good. But I just thought if something like that happened in like San Francisco or San Jose, or some, or even, going to the Asian American History Museum in San Francisco, things that staff members wanted to, have the opportunity to take kids to, just kind of setting that up as something that was out there for our families to take advantage of.
And I did reach out when I was in migrant. I applied for a grant through the Dan and Lillian King Foundation, which is a focus around government, civics, and such. So I did reach out to see if that was going to be available again to help fund some things. I haven't, but if we could get that grant, that would be great. We could target some of them as well.
It's awesome.
And it makes sense. 'Cause I think part of what we've mentioned also, like in our mission, is having well-rounded students that are going to be good citizens once they leave our school district. So I think exposing more to field trips like that outside of the space, I think is awesome. So that's a great idea.
It was really fun when I was at the gala. The people that came, who organized it, came out and they were looking at the audience and they were like, "I'm so excited to see an audience that looks like America."
Oh.
You know, so because it was such a diverse, amazing group of people, and we just happened to be in DC those days, so we were just lucky to get to go see it.
Yeah. Same.
I'm just saying.
Well, speaking of DC, I remember that John G. students were going to go to DC, and I don't know, did they recently do a catch up? Oh, awesome. That's great. And I know we're doing great with our DLAC and getting parent participation. How about at least facilitating the opportunity at the different sites for parents to start a PTA? I know one of the schools has a great PTA. And I don't know if that's like site specific, depending on the administrator or not, but
It's really dependent on parents, and I'll just say I don't love PTAs. They cost money, so our families that don't have the income to support a PTA are often left out through PTA. So there's another option, which is a PTO. PTOs are not funds based. The challenge with a PTO or a PTA is they really have to be parent driven. I know at La Jolla, like they have a parent organization that's not either of those, but it's really parent led around activities and such. And so I think that especially with our new administrators, what's going to be really important is that they're building parent capacity for leadership within there to be a voice for those, even outside of the structure of the formality of what a PTA or PTO is. Just research wise, PTAs and PTOs do well in affluent schools, and they cause divides in less affluent schools tends to happen. So I think that what would be really important is for me to work with our principals to make sure that there's clear parent organizations and parent voice around the activities that are occurring. And so I can definitely facilitate that.
yeah, definitely. I mean, maybe not an organized, but at least a way for parents to help and
Like an advisory
participate.
council.
Yeah, or and then
I think were you kind of also mentioning just kind of me brainstorming.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is the direction you were thinking of, but also like for them to like volunteer more. You were thinking.
yeah, as our opportunities open up. So
Yeah, and I think that's been really, I had a parent who, or not a parent, it was Frankie, he's a retired custodian who, Frankie, he used to go and read in classrooms all the time, and he stopped by the other day to ask, like, is that available? Do you think I'll be able to do that this year? And I said, sure, hope so, that we're
Yeah.
in that space. So
COVID really messed things up.
it really did.
Right.
And with that, that's part of what, for example, with working with Centro Binacional, that's part of what we're talking. There's a meeting happening again on Friday. That part of what they're going to do is help us facilitate parent involvement in school activities and stuff like that, so that it's really coming from that community-based organization where the trust has already occurred and is and happening. So I'm hopeful that we'll start to see some transitions there at somebody that with that support there as well. Like you said, the Republic has a pretty good foundation. La Jolla has a really good foundation as well. So it'll be kind of supporting, looking at our sites.
Oh,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
And how about our school site councils and the participation from the classified and teachers? Is that going, or could that be one of our goals for the next year?
So those are set. The numbers are set on your majority and how you do, and they actually vote on so certificated votes on who they want representing them, classified votes on who they want representing them on the school site council at each school.
That's been good. I would like to see better parent participation, and that's a goal for the students of the area. So we've improved our participation in some district activities, and now it's about getting more parents at some of that site stuff. So the principals have brought it up as a goal themselves as well.
So it sounds like a goal might be just building parent capacity in that sense to
Yeah.
evolve.
Because for school site council and DLAC, or if you have them combined, you're required to have a majority of parents. Your staff members actually have to make up a minority of that.
One of the strategies that I brainstormed with a couple of the principals who had talked to me about it at the end of the year is similar to what we did for DLAC that seemed to be really effective, is offering kind of that leadership opportunity beforehand to really explain what the process is going to be. Because what we know is that oftentimes our parents aren't showing up because they're intimidated by the process, right? So you send something that says nominate somebody or self-nominate for this, but what is that, right? What does that mean? And so maybe at each side offering a leadership opportunity for parents where they can come in and learn about what it means to be a school site council member, so that by the time that that process happens, they understand what it is they're signing up for and that there's supports in place to guide them through it. I talked with Sandra Bravo, who's our DLAC president and has taken on a real leadership role. She's also now the migrant president of the PAC over there. And so, you know, about her really supporting and being a voice for, you can do this, right? Like you know how to do it, and using kind of that padres mentores mentality in that process. So
Great.
That'll be a goal.
Great. Thank you.
Is there anything else any board members?
No, there is one question that I have, or not even question, it's just a like offer. How about Gift and Talented, the GATE program? I know that for a while there, I have been trying to get the GATE program going. And we sort of talked about it, but it never got off the ground. And so I don't think we've gotten there yet.
We haven't.
So that's one of the things that I would like to see happen.
Okay.
And can you explain again what the GATE program was? I've heard the term before when I was.
Gifted and Talented Education is what GATE stands for. And the last time we talked about it, Elva, pre-COVID, which feels like 20 years ago now, we were looking at picking a couple of grade levels to do the assessments, looking at possibly the COGAT, because that also is applicable for English learners. So it wouldn't be excluding our non-English speaking students. By now, there may be better assessments. We also have Melanie Grundy on deck, who I know is going to know a lot of information about this. And then Summer. And so we can certainly put that back on the list to revisit and dig into and make some suggestions to the board.
Okay, great.
That would be good.
Okay.
And then also, is there a way, like, you know, our book club, that they have so many good, is there like a supplemental curriculum for teachers that we can get? Because I know the book has how to implement or which suggestions on implementing, but it would be so nice since we've had this issue, you know, that just recently. The book is good. It's a really good book, but how can we, it's just not only through the book club, but how else can we get that on board?
We'll start to see it happening right from the beginning. So starting with our optional PD days that are coming up, we have representation that you'll see kind of from the book. So for example, there'll be a workshop on speaking up and speaking out for teachers, like how to respond directly to biased, racist, sexist comments that are made, along with practice. So if I hear something, say something, and what does that look like with the practice? So a lot of what we have coming up throughout our professional developments, as well as targets within our PLCs, really focus around that idea. Again, the book club is voluntary, right? But I think you were at the last one was the one when I was telling teachers, like there really are ambassadors of what's there. So the goal is that this group from this book club go back to their sites, and the benefit is we have representation from all of our sites, which is great. So they go back to their sites, and in the staff lounge, instead of talking about what Johnny's doing on the playground, they're talking about, hey, I had this opportunity. We strategically place books in places, and it starts to kind of gain momentum to start with, and then we embed it just consistently in the work that we're doing, so that instead of it being kind of a, you know, you have to do these things, or here's what this is, it's like, here's an opportunity, and as that starts to spread, what we know is that when somebody next door is seeing success with something, and we start to see them being successful, the next teachers kind of asking those questions. I already pre-ordered our other books, 15 copies, 20 copies, so that those teachers can get them. And we can start spreading that. And again, between the student book club, the parent book club, and the teacher book club,
And the administrators.
we're hoping that all of that meshes together. Some of the books that are in the book club's next book club section actually have an accompanying, not so much a curriculum, but like a guide that goes with them. So through those book clubs, we'll be able to really push that guide out and forward. But in our leadership, in our principals retreat, part of what we're talking about with them is make the plan. How are you embedding this, not today, put at every start of every one of your staff meetings as part of your PLCs. When a discipline issue comes forward, how are you putting into place those strategies that are located here? So that it starts to just become what we do and not a task.
Thank you. I know as a teacher, it's just so hard. I mean, as a former teacher, I know that was it's a very hard like principle or how to embed that into your own curriculum. The teacher has so much to do during the day that how are we going to, you know, put that in a day or once a week? But okay, so it's through PLCs that's going to.
And also with our implementation of the restorative practices, which starts, you know, with that training starts there. When they do that morning opening circle, it's about calling out and calling forward any issues that occurred, right? So if there was a racist comment made on the playground the day before, the teacher may have had that conversation with the student, and then in that circle time, they're calling that out to everybody, you know, about the harm that was caused. So again, for me, it's the hope is that it just becomes part of that process between the restorative practices, between the work with administrators and teachers, through the learning we do together with the book clubs. It'll kind of build. It's a longer process, right? It's not going to happen overnight, but so much has happened already positive that.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? No, one thing I just want to say, thank you, Melissa, for bringing this forward. And I think even starting it last year, now to every year be able to kind of have goals, revise them, see how we're doing progress, you know, and it's a way to kind of see like, okay, are we progressing? How are we improving? What needs to be changed and stuff. So I think even moving forward now, this is like our tradition every year.
Yeah.
Right.
That,
we have it.
I think putting things like the governance calendar, this kind of thing, making it, it's that clear tradition. It's that putting something, so when people go, why are you guys doing that? We can go back because we said this is our goal. This is what we want to work towards, and clearly, right? And it also, like, whoever comes on our board or thinks about being on the board, they go, well, I could get behind that, or I think we should add this other thing, and they can bring that forward, and it just becomes part of the work of the board, right?
Yeah,
Thank you. If you think of anything else, just, you know, and I'll bring you a more finalized document we'll reapprove our strategic action plan. I'll put those numbers on the priorities for Donna, and then we'll get this added. Guys, I'm gonna turn this over to you here in a second. Are you ready? Okay, I'll
I
make
just
sure
gotta step
everybody
out
has
really
their.
quick to use the restroom.
Yeah, we're gonna take a little quick break, transition over to your slideshow. I made a printout in case everything's too small. I will say that Krisha and Hussam and the IT team have already talked about better solutions for the projection and the larger screen. I know Jacob mentioned that. And then Krisha had some thoughts about how we could do a couple of displays in here. And that way, when it's a PD room, we could actually do some breakout stuff and do that. And they tried running it by me, her and Donna, and I was like, that sounds great. Absolutely. Yeah. I love that. Donna has the money. And it was really weird because I used to be in that position. So I would be like, I have the money. Now I'm like, no, Donna's got it. Y'all just, you watched me stand up? I know, we're like standing.
we're going to move on to our, are we live for the, okay, we're going to move on to our item 10.2, discussions of a 5-year facilities plan draft review. It's an informational discussion item. Probably easier. Oh yeah, he needs a mic.
Okay, we're live. Are we? Good? Can you guys hear me? Well, thank you very much. This 5-year plan doesn't look very big, but it's very intensive with information from various, departments. Basically what Melissa said, staff, teachers, custodians, maintenance workers, principals. We've vetted almost everybody and a few of you board members too. So I just want to kind of tell you what the components are and how this is set up. So basically, it's been in the making for 6 months right now. This is how much information goes in consideration of, priorities number 1, which are fire, life, safety. Priorities 2, health, and comfort. 3 is, just painting and stuff like that, just fluff on it. The other big consideration is not just the information that goes into here, is the components of how can we afford it, so the funding. And I just want to kind of let you guys know what kind of funding we're going after. Right now, we have general funding in this calculation. We have the consideration of the bond, which you guys have approved. CDE contribution, state funding for modernization eligibility. Other preschool state funds that are available still. TK funding. And I just want to do a kind of a shout out to Jillian for Martin, which is one of our staff members. During this whole time, we were talking about all these facilities needs. And she goes, hey, I talked to Seth Rita and they came up with a big list of all these needs. And I said, great. So she would vet all the staff and get their wants and needs and fixes. And most of those items were pretty much work orders that we worked on. So we were able to kind of, take care of a lot of that stuff. And the big stuff that they kind of put out, like more kindergarten rooms, we put it in a master plan. So we were able to kind of get almost all of the information. I'm sure there's probably 1 or 2 things that we're probably missing now. But again, this is a draft, and this is something that I don't want to really shock you with it, solely because at the very end, you're going to see what the number is and what the available funding is. However, we're still working through the other components, like our funding with TK. Actually, the funding for TK is actually considerable because their standards are not a portable building. They want us to go with the stick figure. So they're actually putting roughly about 475,000 just for that funding alone per classroom, which is, it's considerable. So they still haven't really thought out the whole process on how it goes. But Kevin, our consultant, is actually kind of staying on top of that and letting us know when we can apply. The other thing is that, like the funding that we just used up for the funding that we just used for the kitchen is always already considered into the contribution for the modernization. So we applied, I submitted all of the packet together to our consultant so that we could actually ask for the money now. So there's a lot of components in there. So right now, if the bond and the modernization eligibility that we're guaranteed right now, we're roughly about 37 million. So we could probably go through what we consider the phase 1, which is year 1, phase 2, year 2. We're up to possibly 2 1/3 of the 5 phases that we're going to present tonight. Again, I want to go ahead and have Don kind of show you the phases. The way it's set up is he's kind of colored little blocks and squares on site now, telling you this is phase one, what it could look like, where it could go, what's the location. Phase two, when we finish this one, we could actually knock down. So we're also in the consideration of this phase plan is temporary housing, because remember, in order to take something down, you got to build something just for the kids. So he's going to go ahead and take over now, and I'll probably interject a couple of times. All right, this is Don. Very north.
You want to move the tissue box? I feel like it's like right there. Thank you.
Hi, so anyway, I'm Don Barry with Sugimura Finney Architects, and as Victor said, I'm going to walk you through a brief overview of all the sites and how we can progress with developing new buildings, new site work, replacing portables, and all that stuff. There we go.
Where should we go?
Oh, there we go. All right. So we're going to go campus by campus. So Gavilan View School.
I think you went through.
Oh,
There we
sorry.
go. Oh, there we go.
All right. Gavilan View School. Oh, sorry. So the first phase we're looking at is adding 4 new portables. There are 4 new modular classrooms. We'll tuck them in the southwest corner of the Bobby Sox. Part of that will include some infrastructure because we're going to need to do some electrical power up there. We're going to need to do some fire alarm upgrades. So all of that is going to be part of this, and it's going to sort of work as we develop through this plan. So the next step is we're going to take down the 4 portable classrooms. We've been calling it Wing 6. And then that will allow us space to build a new 2-story, 8-classroom building. And that'll make up for what's going to be in the next stage. Now, again, just to remind you, as we go through this, we're going to be doing electrical upgrades, electrical supply to all the new buildings, fire alarm, plumbing, some other things like that. Yes.
Why do we want to replace them?
Those are very old buildings. I believe that they have some dry rot issues. Yeah. Those buildings back in that corner are quite old, and as I recall, they've got some dry rot. The siding's rotting. It's time. I think they've been around since probably the early 90s, late 80s, possibly even older than that. So yeah, so those are.
So they're well beyond their useful life as far as defined for the portables themselves. Yeah.
So CDE actually considered.
Mr. Ryan, Mr. Allen, we're all in those portables.
CDE actually funds portables.
Wow.
So the life expectancy on a portable with a wood foundation. That's why a lot of districts would actually put these portables for 20 years. Well, here we are right now. It had been refurbished, a couple of times. That time, if you walk into the local portable, you're going to see there's an apex on this. It actually. That's where the modular will be. You'll see that because nothing underneath that. From the weather, from the moisture, right? It's decayed on the side, so it starts doing. So basically, it's 20 years for that. Funding starts for permanent buildings.
So that'll give us 8 additional classrooms, and then that'll take us to taking down Little Bear Preschool, which there is plans to replace that. We'll get to that in a little bit. And then the 3 other portables there on the north end of the campus. And that will give us space to build a new gym and locker rooms. And then the step after that is the track and field. Now we all know, I shouldn't say we all know, there have been some discussions that to put a track in there, a regulation size track, would need to replace one of the Bobby Sox fields. It's a discussion that would need to be had with Bobby Sox before there's any real commitment for that.
One of the additional pieces of information is we did at one point in time consider trying to do a regulation field here, but because of 2 points of, believe it or not, Russell, it's down, which then runs into the drain. So right now, the two drains that exist are right here. All of this drain. Street goes over, drains here, it connects onto those two pipes. So by doing it up here, if we did it here, the swales for the drainage here, it would be.
Sorry, really quick. Can they hear him online? Oh, okay. Am I, sorry, Victor, can you carry the mic? Oh, no, sorry, just so that way the public, yeah. And so the reason is because the public sees this, and so that way the reason is because like 10 years down the line, they're going to be like, why didn't you guys put it here? And that way people will know.
Okay. So, or they're going to tell me like, hey, you were on the board. Why did you put it there? So if we were to put the regulation size here, we would be encroaching on 2. We thought maybe doing a regulation size field this way. Well, guess what? This is 4 feet lower than this, and this is 3 feet lower than that. So we're going to have a large amount of dirt. And then what happens to the drainage from the rest of the site? So here, we're only encroaching on 1 field. However, also looking at giving them a parking lot here so that they can, have access from Russell Road and doing that. That would be, I mean, we can't really look at fitting it in any other way without encroaching too much on Bobby Sox.
And that's so some of those tough conversations we'll need to have to figure out.
So this is our quick estimate for what we're looking at for the costs for all of the phases. I think Victor's going to get into that in a little more detail, but just to give you a rough order of magnitude of what it would be for the whole thing would be somewhere around 22.8, 22.9 million for all steps. At Gutierrez, what we're looking at is phase 1 would be some locker rooms. Now putting these out there, there's a big, hump, a big pile in the middle of that playground. To get that in there and to work would need to take that down. So there'd be some extensive site work there. And if you were to move it out farther towards the field, I think right at that edge, it drops about 2 or 3 feet. So no matter what you do, you're looking at some significant amount of grading work that would need to take place out there. Next would be, I know there's been discussion about putting ball fields out there so we could get the ball fields in. And at that point, we would relocate the garden. And the reason for that is we're looking at interim housing for 6 interim housing classrooms to go right over there. You can see sort of the northeastish of the site. Those would be, again, 6 classrooms. And the rough order of magnitude we're looking at that is about 8.2 million. So, and again, you can see the breakdown of how we're looking at it per phase. Next, we're looking at La Jolla. This one's a little more involved. We've done a lot of talk about what to do with this campus since, I'm trying to jump back for a second. So all the portables up along the front at Rogie Road, I know there are lots of problems with those. Those are in great need of replacement. So we're looking at that. And one of the first steps that would need to take place is some coordination with the County Office of Education. They occupy, I believe it's 34 and 35, or they own classroom 34 and 35. Victor can be my pointer. So those 2. So what we've discussed is a spot down there on the southwest corner of the campus where they could replace their space. And then that would allow us to take down those 2 portables as the early phase and then put up the new 2-story building. Now this would be 12 classrooms with a library, which is roughly the equivalent of 2 classrooms. So roughly 14 classrooms would go in. And then after that, would start doing the site work, the significant site work, get rid of the portables along Rogie, clear out the site, and that'll allow us to put in a new bus drop-off and some additional parking, as well as expand the play area, since the new 2-story building is going to take up a fair amount of your existing playgrounds. And then,
On the mic. On the mic.
On the mic.
On the mic. Sorry, Victor. It's on the mic. These 3 portables are older than I am. So I know how I feel. I know how things are going. Those are super duper old. Wow. They have OSA numbers, not TSA, OSA. So anyways, all these portables here have met their life span. I mean, basically, they are just completely bonded. They have the parabolic flooring system, which is, ideal for rolling pinballs. Yeah, experimenting, But anyways, yeah, they're completely old. They're in dire need of replacement. So one of them is actually condemned right now. And the unfortunate thing is that I can't demo it because this number 24, that's where the IDF is at, that houses all of the cabling for all of these portables. Plus, the switchgear is attached to it right there. And so that kind of takes some planning. I mean, we thought we could just take it out. But that was one of the reasons that we added the 3 portables on this site, solely to make up for the portables that we can't really use right now.
Thanks.
I had a question just in terms of ultimately rerouting the buses and that kind of thing. Are we just trying to deal with the congestion on Rogie Road, or what's the goal here?
So that's why we said, basically, this is for 3 large buses right here, a big enough space for 3 large buses. There is another consideration. There's a larger parking area. If we were to have Head Start move over to the top, and I kind of presented that in the facilities committee, but we still need buy-off from, MCOE Head Start program in order to do that kind of a major modernization. So this is a dedicated, just a bus drop-off. This is your parent, much more staging drop-off. We could actually do 2 lanes here, one for staging, one for drive-through. So that's kind of like segregating the buses from the parents. And then, of course, a lot of the confusion for, who goes where, what goes what. That's the only reason that we have this. And plus, if you really look at the architectural integrity of these buildings, these basically were designed as the front of the school. I mean, it'll look much better, and they call them the brick buildings. They're great. I mean, the facades are.
You have to note that La Jolla is our elementary school that has that only one parking area entrance, and if you've ever tried to pick up drop off there when buses are happening, it's really cumbersome and somewhat dangerous. Our other sites, even Santa Rita with the second driveway with the roundabout, has more functionality than, and I am 100% sure that parking lot met the need when La Jolla was originally built, and it was just the brick building, but it's now it's the size of any of our other elementary schools without the amount of usable parking and bus drop off.
Yeah, I would just recommend that we speak to MCOE as much as possible, just to alleviate some of the traffic. I like the plan that you presented the facilities committee, in the corner, that they have their own parking, their own thing, just because, it's just so congested. So whatever you can do to encourage them.
Yeah, I mean, once we kind of approve a lot of this stuff, the needs and, of course, the coordination that we have, and Dr. Summer Prather Smith is actually working on a lot of that coordination. And no promises, of course, but I mean,
Pressure.
she knows the right people. Yeah, she's very, very persuasive.
One other thing to point out that we're looking at doing with part of this plan is relocating the office, which is currently at the south, where we're looking at the parent drop-off, and turning that into a parent resource center, and relocating the office to where the current library is so that it truly becomes the front of the campus. So you'd be, yeah, so the campus now faces Rhodey Road.
Just keep in mind that that's the reason we have that tiny one at JD, with the idea that we're moving to Mahoney with the modernization.
And then there's adding the TK to the campus. It's a tight squeeze in there, but we think we can get two of the standard size transitional kindergartens in there, expand it a little bit, and a new play structure. And roughly we're looking at about 19.7, 19.8 for the whole thing. Next is McKinnon. So we don't have a significant amount of need here. So our first phase is looking at adding a couple shade structures. I know that's something that they're lacking out there. So we're adding them up around one adjacent to the multi-purpose room and one sort of more centered over by the classrooms. And then this next step is one of the great things that needs to be done is roofing and gutter repairs, which not much to see here, but I know there's a lot of the existing roofing is in some need of some help. And then our next step here would be adding two transitional kindergarten classrooms. And then this is another site that we've been considering for interim housing. So up at the north side of the site there, we're looking at adding 6 portable classrooms for your interim housing.
Now, at the very end, I'm going to start talking about what covers what funding. Right? Remember, we said 80. Sorry, not used to him holding a microphone. So we'll start talking about the phasing and what the funding kind of covers. Again, remember the bond, the possible bond that we're wanting to pass, the modernization eligibility of what we have in general fund. That's kind of already there. However, TK funding, that would cover this project. That right there, we're looking at developer fees. So that's not coming out of the modernization. That's coming out of the developer fee. The modernization project or portion of the bond would actually just cover the existing buildings that are there. Basically because we've had that building, we've had those buildings, we had the site at the very beginning. So the shade structures and possibly the roofing project would actually be covered by the bond, but nothing else on that thing. Is that? Richard.
There is one more step out there, and that's there are 8 portable classrooms and a portable restroom that are very much in the same shape as some of the other portables out there. I know.
Yes, at a later point, basically, because now remember, the sites actually start getting points for modernization at the age of 20, but unfortunately, these portables came from a different site, so they don't count because they were only reported at a certain point. So 20 years from then, we can start getting the modernization eligibility. By the way, this is the portable that I kind of reported on that the roof, or not the roof, but the floor came out. That's how old they are too. And I believe these portables came from Santa Rita at one point in time. So, and that's when Santa Rita had a double site. How long ago was that? I'm just.
I started teaching, and the year I left Santa Rita and went to McKinnon, my portable, which is one of those.
There you go. All right.
And then what we're looking at roughly rough order of magnitude is about $10.4, $10.5 million for that scope. Next, we got New Republic. And this is sort of similar to McKinnon. Our first step is shade structures. I know there's another thing that they've been needing out there. And those would somehow flank the multi-purpose room. Next, again, the glamorous stuff, roofing and gutter repairs. Then we get into our transitional kindergarten. Again, it's a tight squeeze for this up in the northwest corner of the site, but I think we can get it to work. Expand the play area and new play structure. And then replace the other two play structures out there at the campus, which I think have pretty much run their lifespan. This one's, we're looking at about 4.3, 4 points, sorry, let me try that again. 4.3, $4.4 million. And last, we've got Santa Rita. So our first step would be to expand the parking. That would require the MCOE program to be relocated. And again, that's another issue that would need to be coordinated with them. But that would allow for expansion, put them in the back. We can, like I said, expand the parking, share some drop-off space. And that'll play into further development of what we're looking at for this campus. The next step would be to expand the playground and replace the play structures. And then we relocate the kinder. Now, right now, the kindergarten is the L-shaped building to the south there. There are 3 classrooms. There's really no space to expand with TK. We've looked at it, and we just can't really figure out a workable solution. So we decided that do a new kindergarten facility, and that would be just north of Building 500 there. 4 new kindergarten classrooms, 2 new transitional kindergarten.
Can you point that out, Victor? Where is?
It's got
Oh, okay.
These are the 2 TKs,
That's the kindergarten I got.
but all in the same complex, so that they can actually share.
Yeah.
Primary or,
Share their facilities, their playgrounds. And
they're all still kind of segregated from the rest of the grade.
And the building 500 would just be just regular classrooms.
So the building 500, we're looking at regular classrooms, and Santa Rita Elementary is one of our sites that doesn't have any special day classes right now, and we're having to transport several students over to those at other campuses. Because it is a neighborhood school, by definition, it's our slightly larger school, but this gives that extra space that they need to maybe offer some of those additional services and have some flexible space.
so that wing 300 that used to be the kinder, I think is that, 300 would be the flexible space.
And just remember, the 300 has its own restroom facilities inside. It has sinks. It's actually bigger than just a regular classroom. It's roughly about 1,200.
I think it's about 1,300 sort of per classroom. It includes workspace, restrooms, and I think offices.
Yeah.
And about
office.
1,100 square foot classroom.
Yeah, the only thing I was noticing it's part of just the way the classrooms are, but I think TK and K I think are the furthest away from the parking compared to the other school sites on this one.
Yeah.
Just as far as, pick up from parents and stuff. But I mean, that's kind of what we're working with. It's what's there.
Well, if you really kind of look at the front parking lot, there's no expansion. We're
Yeah.
kind of landlocked here, landlocked
Yeah,
there.
There's nothing there.
Well, even though we kind of own the creek.
I was
I
going
mean,
to say,
and-
you're not landlocked, you're in danger of flood.
And we also own the bridge.
Oh, dude. Interesting.
Yeah, but the city takes care of it, and the parks system has taken over that property right now. So, we still need kind of access for the expansion of the parking lot. The only area for expansion is right here.
Yeah.
So we can't move anything over this way. We can't put anything in front of here because that's all the switchgear meaning all the electrical, solar right behind it, and the fire access to inside the campus there.
So just short of tearing down buildings and
Yeah.
starting again, but that's, again, you're just looking at more costs.
Does kindergarten, do they still have, maybe flashbacks, but do they still do tricycles and outdoor? So is there going to be outdoor storage incorporated into that?
Yeah, we have space for
Okay.
that. Sort of if you go to the right of the plan or east, there's a huge field.
Now, I
There's
know one of
space.
the things we've talked about it a lot, like in our facilities and previous board meetings, but for those like watching or our people here with us, one of the reasons why when you look at these maps, it seems like we're short on kinder and TK classrooms. When all of our schools were built, we were on an AM PM schedule. Remember that? So it's like the number of kindergartners that we had were high and the same, but you either were AM or PM. So you could do it in that number of classrooms. And then when we went to whole day, which now the state says you do full day. So luckily we've already weathered that storm. We didn't add classrooms when we did that. So what happens is then you have a TK or a kinder classroom in a classroom that was built for a different grade. And so they don't have the restroom facilities, they don't have the hand washing stations, those things that are in our purposely built TK kinder classrooms. And now with the state expanding TK within the next couple of years, luckily they're doing a gradual expansion to give you time to catch up. And they're supplying, and eventually they'll tell us here's what it is, the funding to meet those expansion needs for TK and kinder. So putting those in sort of addresses that, and we're not the only district that went to full day and realized we were short on classrooms if we do that. And so there really is a shortage of those primary grade classrooms.
One thing I'm also noticing as we go through each of the school sites is how limited space we have. You know, because I think one thing that we're also dealing with is the West area and how they kind of the developer wants us to put more students in classrooms. And I'm just thinking the quality of education we provide in sports and fields and that kind of stuff is just compacting because there's so many more things I want to add, there's really no space or cost. So I think it just kind of shows visually how limited space we are in each of our sites as well.
The other challenge is in order to really kind of upgrade and add more classrooms, then there's the backbone that goes with it. It's kind of a trickle effect. Well, guess what? Now you need another electrical distribution service system, another sanitary sewer system.
That's what I was going to say too.
And I mean, that's tougher than just making it roll downhill. It's a lot tougher because the capacity where that invert is at, basically the tie-in. I mean, it's a big challenge. So that adds a whole different story to, not just being able to say, hey, add more portables. It's like, hey, if the developer would think, how would you develop it? Well, guess what? He has a master plan, and that's what we have now. So these are our capacities, and these are our limits of what we can do.
That's a great point. It's not just putting a portable down. There's so much more that goes beyond it.
That's why I had mentioned earlier, particularly on Gavel and View, the expansion of the infrastructure that goes along that I haven't really touched on much with the further phases, but we do have all of that with everything we do.
Incorporating. Okay, thank you.
So our last step here at Santa Rita is Little Bear, or the preschool. And that would be up at the north part of the site adjacent to the MCOE program. And again, having that drop off, having that parking lot, it just lends itself to that being a spot. And we do have some space over there to develop. The row of portables there, sort of west of that or to the left, it's kind of a little bit of dead space. So it's sort of an ideal space to develop for other programs. So
I have a kind of a question. Can you go back to the last slide? How's besides obviously drop off, when kids are in session, how's the parking situation in the front for the teachers currently? Like, is there, because I know once we add the other parking, that's going to add parking, but then we're adding the preschool as well. So that's also going to add more staff members.
Yeah, and the number of teachers, or basically CDE's formula for a teacher for a classroom is 1.5, I believe, per classroom. So the amount of classrooms that we have, by adding this, we're kind of sufficient, but we do have a lot of drop-off people coming in, and then we also have the they do also park over here solely because right now it's just a turnaround and it's a fire lane also.
A
So
lot of parking at Santa Rita. I haven't seen a staff. There hasn't been a staff
it's only it's really bottlenecking in the mornings and in
Yeah.
the afternoons, and it's just during pickup.
or an event. Like
Yeah.
that's
But
I meant more
we
like
do
during
have
school time.
sufficient, but by segregating the different programs with the different parkings, and this could be enough for, all the staff back here, and it could even cover ours, enough staff to park over here, and then enough staff for visitors too. So I don't have the counts. I think it was on here. Hold on a
That's all
second.
there. I can't do it.
31 standard stalls, 2 ADA.
Well, the other thing I'm thinking long-term wise is just, I mean, traffic is gonna be, we can nothing about it. I mean, it's just what it is.
And the goal is for the traffic is to get them off the main street.
Okay.
So getting them
Oh,
off on the main street, having them drop off like this parent drop off. Now, this one is a dual purpose because this would be a bus drop off also.
Okay. So parents wouldn't be going up that route then, right?
No.
Okay.
So
So-
maybe the parents for the preschool and them, they'll have enough parking area so that they can actually park. But buses, of course, will be able to go
And that
through.
long road right there, that's a 2-lane.
Yes, definitely.
And then just also to share with the preschool part of it, one of the benefits of our collaboration with NCOE is that we're going to have the opportunity to apply for a preschool facilities grant,
Mm.
which will hopefully open up in February, which we will definitely support that. There's quite a bit of money available for preschool facilities, and MCOE has been doing that. They just, MCOE can't apply for the grant because they don't own the property. So they have to be partnered with the property owner, which would be us. And so we would actually be the grant applicants. Facilitate all that because they've been doing it. They just did it with Hartnell and put in 4 new portables out there, facilities for that. And those are again preschool specific facilities. So there's quite a bit of money available. So we're hopeful that it may open a little bit sooner. They just closed it again. It might open at the beginning of the year. So as soon as that opens, we'll be able to apply for that funding. That'll hopefully cover the cost of this new project, not and then free up funding for other things.
So again, the major funding is basically, bits and pieces from everybody, whatever funding that we can get. This project, I believe, go to your next one, is phase 4. It's about $7,095,000. And that's roughly what they would kind of get funded for. So this could be, great. We're still doing the parking lot, 1.8. That'd be part of this. But Santa Rita does have a little bit of modernization, so that could actually fall into that. Again, every one of these phases could mean a year, year and a half in the making. So the 5-year plan is basically could be a 7 to 8 year plan. And that's why most of people like me, they build a 5-year and a 10-year, solely because that 5-year goes into 10-year. It's bear with me. So
You just can't retire, that's all.
sorry. But overall, basically, if we go into the last phase, I just kind of want to just wrap this up real quick. This is every phase for each one of the sites. Again, like we just talked about the Santa Rita, we're looking at, a total of 16 million, but then you take off 7 million. You also take off, let's see, what was first phase? The TK classrooms, which is 5 million. So, no, it's not 5 million because it would be only 2. That's almost $1 million. So there's funding in there.
So there's moving components.
Yes. And then you have state funding, and then you have the general fund. So I would like to kind of really publish this and get this going because I know that right now we can start off with maybe, but at least we can get the phase 1, phase 2 going. And I mean, if I have your support, that would be, kind of great just to go ahead and publish this and call it a first rendering instead of being a draft for 6 months. So
So if funding becomes available in like a different order, so let's say TK monies becomes available quicker than bond monies, or like we get the facilities grant for preschool starting in this period of time. Some of that can be manipulated around based on that availability. Yeah.
Yeah, the change in order would change the order of things. However, it's still published of what we want to do, which are the priorities of number one. This is the first kind of swipe at the points. We would like to finish all of these because before we go into the next priority one level, and hopefully, if this stretches out 8 years, maybe another bond, maybe another state funding, our eligibility might be up for other schools. So
See, I think that would be an important caveat to go ahead and communicate because people would have that question. They would be like, well, I heard the state, you did. And then you'd bring it for like an update, right? If that happens. So the TK funding is a great example, right? So if the state all of a sudden actually published yes, right? And then we could bring it back for like a phasing revision with that information or like the preschool funding or something like that. Because the idea being, and we'll start back up when school starts with our facilities committee, knowing the funding thing, bringing that in, talking to the board, keeping them abreast of the funding as we go.
Like with that preschool facilities grant, if we applied now, it's about they're saying about a year and a half
Right.
of time of application to portables on the ground.
But sometimes things go faster
Right, or longer.
or longer. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just
Good
wanted to
point.
make
No,
sure
it's a,
that you
it's a,
publish it and still move on.
yes. No, it's a good point.
Okay, we'll open it up to the board for discussion, questions, comments, anything they.
So at this point, will we need to agendize it to approve? Okay. Yeah, and then yes, absolutely, I'd be in favor of that. Our problems are not going to get easier. So, the faster we can do this, the better.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It was a great presentation. I think I'm sure it's a lot of the conversations I've had with different individuals. I see it there now, which is pretty great to see. And I'm sure a lot of staff going to the different meetings and giving their input and stuff. So thank you for putting this together. And it's exciting to see what's the potential out there for the next couple of years for our school district and for our families and our students and staff. So I also support putting it on the agenda and getting it approved as a draft. Unless boards have any other comments or concerns? Questions?
Nope, just good job. We were waiting for this. It's a big collaborative effort, and
Yeah.
I mean, you guys have rocked it. I think we have a good solid foundation. So
And thank you for presenting the information. I know I had a couple of conversations with this. It kind of gets overwhelming to understand where the funding's coming up because you see numbers, you're like, wait, how are we going to pay with that with the bond only? But now noticing that there's different funding sources for different things. So obviously, for the TK and for the preschool and other stuff that comes up. So it helps to see that as well.
Well, thank you very much for your input and your support. I really appreciate it. Like I said, this is 6 months in the making, and it's like a weekly meeting with this gentleman over here. And it's like, okay, let's make sense of this. Let's get these numbers right. So I thank you very much, and that's all I have for you tonight.
Yeah, and then when it becomes on the agenda again, if we can have a copy of it, kind of like you did on the slide. Sure. Because these ones are a little bit smaller, just so I had to keep everything.
I did it this way because it was 42 pages.
Okay.
So I was like, I know they're going to put it on the TV.
Yeah.
And I had attached this to our board items so
printed
those
some.
are at home could pull it up in a reasonable size and look at it. And so we'll actually bring it back as like a bound thing for people to look at and then post it online as well.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to 11.1. Our next regular board meeting will be July 27, 2022. I'll be joining everybody by Zoom so that Sarah knows she'll be in person.
I will be facilitating the meeting, and we've had a history of having big, huge meetings when that happens.
know.
So if we could not have that pattern this time, that would be great.
Yeah. That is true. Okay, and then 11.2 is suggested future board items. If there's any from the board? No? Is it good? Okay. It is 7:22. Can I get a motion to adjourn early?
I make a motion to adjourn.
A second, please.
Second?
Okay, and roll call.
Ms. Alvariano,
Aye.
Ms. Sarah Turner,
Aye.
Mr. Jacob Sandoval,
Aye.
Mr. Andrew Sandoval.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
I just noticed Miguel was here, but I guess.
Sorry, Miguel.
He was there in case we had any
Oh, okay,
questions
sorry.
about the resolution, but we did
Okay.
not.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Miguel.
He's like, thanks.